if you haven't already, like, checked out our last episode, episode 60, we were talking about the release of Mariposas, Spanish Rose, you know, all of those details. So if you haven't already, and for live, please go check out our first episode.
What is going on, everybody? Today we are back with another special episode. But before we get into it, I'm going to go ahead and play the intro music.
Perhaps your skills do extend a bit farther than basketball.
As I was saying, my name is Dante. We are Chez Dante, and today we are actually in studio. Well, I'm in studio, but we also have another person in studio. Who do we have here?
Ruth Alexsandra.
Hey,
Hello.
So we got Ruth Alexsandra in the studio.
What's up?
Last week we did the IG live.
We were supposed to.
Oh, also she's live on IG right now. But last week we were supposed to meet in person. We ran into some weather troubles, you know.
Yeah.
So
Canada
probs, you know. Apparently, you're supposed to have even more Canada probs this weekend. I heard. So we ended up doing the Instagram live, which worked out better than I thought it would.
Yeah.
And so we rescheduled the in-person conversation to today, which is what you guys are listening to now. But yeah, before we hop into any of the topics, make sure you leave a like, leave a comment down below of what you want to hear next, and make sure you check out the Patreon in the description below. All right, guys, the Patreon is what allows this platform to float like a boat in the oceans of chaos. The rivers of troubles. The rivers of troubles, whatever you want to call it. You can support for the low cost of one caramel ice cap a month. That's all it costs. I know you guys buy more than one ice cap a month. I know I sure do. So, yeah, there you go. Patreon down in the description below. Now let's hop right into it.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, let's hop right into it. So I guess we'll kind of just do a little bit of an intro. What Chez Dante does, what I do. So I am a pianist, teacher, composer. I feel like I'm missing one. Like there's always one that I'm missing. Like, pianist, teacher, composer, and artist.
Artist, yeah.
There's literally always one that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like one other thing.
It's like, did you watch Game of Thrones?
I have not watched it. I'm so sorry. I'm literally so sorry.
Okay, I won't use that reference.
Yeah.
I'll scrap it for later. You guys that watch Game of Thrones know where I was going with that.
I'm really sorry.
Daenerys Targaryen, House of blah, blah, blah. Anyways.
Yeah, so, I'm a lot of things, but I always forget, like, that one piece of information.
Yeah.
So, that's basically what I do. I teach music, I play music, and I'm just in this musical space because I love it.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
What kind of music do you play, and what kind of music do you teach?
So I play a lot more classical mixed with jazz and a little bit of Latin, and I teach pretty much an arrangement. So like whatever somebody wants to learn, like I can teach them. And it's usually always up to the direction of the student, like wherever they want to go in. But I always like kind of teach them the foundations.
Yeah.
And since I'm like classically trained, the foundation for me will always be like a little bit of classical.
Okay.
So, but I teach an arrangement, so.
So when you say your foundation is classical, do you mean that when you teach, you also teach a classical foundation?
Yeah, like more naturally, I would say it's more like in a classical way.
Got you.
But there's also room to, like, if the student wants to learn like jazz or like any kind of other, they're all universal and they're all really connected. So there isn't really like anything that's like too far off from each other.
Yep.
Unless it's like screamo.
Screamo piano? Is that sort of thing?
Piano.
Just the lowest note?
Like dark notes. A lot of like dark dissonant notes like on the end of the piano. Like if they want to learn that stuff, then I'm like, I'm probably not the teacher for that. But like their overall scope, like I can teach like pretty much everything.
Got you. What else do we have here? So, I'll talk a little bit about myself.
Chez Dante.
So we'll talk about Chez Dante. For those of you just tuning in, Chez Dante is it's a metaphysical place, as I like to describe it, an underground library that's in the clouds, because you gotta post it online and stuff like that. But basically, Chez Dante is a place where I want to be able to store knowledge and wisdom and lessons and ideas. I want to be able to store them in one place, so that way in the future I can always come back and check out a book from the library, or because it's public domain, anybody can come in and say like, oh well, I was just kind of dealing with this issue, let me see if there's any podcasts on it or whatever it may be. Or so I wanted to just start this podcast and start uploading all this content and information and knowledge all into one place. And I explained this last time, but the reason I went with Chez Dante, it's pronounced Chez and not Chez. I know a lot of people think it's Chez Dante, but it's actually Chez Dante.
Chez Dante, yes.
It's French, and basically it comes from when you want to go to somebody's house, you say you're going Chez whoever. So if I want to go to your house, it would be Chez Ruth, right? But if you want to come to my house with all my knowledge, you got to go Chez Dante. And that's where we are. So that's basically, my backstory. I started this a year ago. We can go into that as well, or save it for later.
We can get into the details.
Okay.
Let's actually just talk about, so if you haven't already checked out our last episode, episode 60, we were talking about the release of Mariposas, Spanish Rose, all of those details. So if you haven't already, and for live, please go check out our first episode that we did. It was a lot of fun. It was over live.
Yep.
And we'll brush up on a few things here and there about it. But yeah, definitely go check that out. And I guess we can just hop right into it. Any other promotions going on right now?
Any other promotions? Yeah, I plugged this a little bit last time, but I also, run a production company on the side. So if you guys, you're looking to get content out, or for your Instagram, or maybe even for your business, you don't really have a strategy, you don't know what kind of videos to shoot, pictures, or even if you want to do your own podcast, I help produce all that stuff. So that would be the last thing I'd like to mention for now. All right, so let's go down this list here.
First topic was
the first topic when we did the introductions, right? But let's talk about the why, because I think the why is such an important thing. With
the why is anything you do.
What with whatever it comes to, what you're doing, the why is super important. Have you read the book Start With Why?
I know it exists, and I have not read it.
Oh, okay.
I knew it exists.
It's a really good book. Highly recommended. For those of you in the Instagram live, comment if you guys have read, Start With Why.
Just put a wave
if you've read Start With Why. We actually did an episode on it on the podcast. Me and a few guests, we did a little book club. So we all read the first chapter, and then we connected, be like, so what did you learn from the first chapter? So we talked about it. It's a very good book, but so let's talk about it. Why music? What is your why when it comes to your music, your art, or the two songs? I know that's three questions, but we'll start with why music?
Why music?
Yeah.
Why music? I think for the longest part, from my childhood, seeing it, growing up, just being in that space, the why was never really there or present. It was just something that I've always been exposed to.
Okay.
So it was more just a matter of who within the family is going to pass around this next, the next generation of musicianship or artistry.
Got it. Yeah.
So I never really had a why. I just had more of a knowing.
Okay.
Okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what feels good to me. And this is what I know how to do well. Of course, there are whys where I'm why am I still doing this? I'm oh my God. Of course I have whys like that, but there's never really there's just always a knowing for me. Because I know that this is what I'm supposed to do. And I guess my why overall is to help other people.
Yeah.
That would really be it. Truly transform people, how they think, how they feel, and affecting them through the music that I know how to do.
Yeah. No, so. That's awesome. And just to piggyback off your why of to help people, right? That is also kind of my why statement when it comes to this podcast, right? My why is like, you know, I want people to be able to, while they're listening to this podcast, maybe they're driving to their job, maybe they're out for a walk or whatever, but like you can just be listening to this podcast and, you know, you might hear one thing, right? And that one thing might trigger one thought.
Exactly.
And that one thought, that's my why, right? I just want the one thought of like, I never thought of it this way, or that's a good idea. Because, and we talked a little bit about this in the last episode, but you know, whatever you manifest does kind of start in the mind. It starts with a thought, right? So it's like, depending on the quality of the thoughts, or even how these thoughts or where these thoughts are coming from, I think is like super important, right? So like I said, this podcast is like, I talk about such a wide range of topics, whether it be music, spirituality, you know, personal development. Maybe I'll get into finance in the future. I don't know. Maybe some Bitcoin. We'll see how that looks like in the future. But, you know, things of that nature. And all because, like, you know, once you do have the people listening, they can just hear, like, literally hear one thing and it triggers a thought, and they never thought in that way before. Right. And then they start doing things differently. They have a positive upswing. Like, oh, wow, I didn't know I could do this. And then they start doing this, and they start going to the gym or whatever. So that's really my why. Just for those, I call them thoughts of value, right? When you have a thought that then translates into something physical or something beneficial.
Thoughts of value.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never heard of that, actually.
I coined it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So your why is really just changing people's mindsets to think differently in a more positive way.
It's not specifically changing their mindset, but giving them the opportunity to change their own mind, right? So I'm just like putting the information out there, right? And not every episode you might have these thoughts, but there could just be one episode that you really resonate with, and then that's where that one thought comes from. So I'm not like out there intentionally like, you should be thinking this way, or
why aren't you thinking this way?
Yeah, or why aren't you thinking the same way I'm thinking? It's more like, here is how I think, or here are some ideas that I have been thinking about.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? Or like, what thoughts come to your mind when you hear or see these, you know, ideas? So yeah, that's my why statement.
All right.
And actually, funny enough, if you guys go and tune all the way back to episode 1, I believe, I talked about it there. So it's been going strong.
Going strong. As it should. Mm-hmm. What's popping and rocking?
What's popping and rocking? How's everyone doing in the IG Live chat? Are there any questions? We can actually, we'll hop between.
What is the name of the show?
So this show is called Chez Danté. It's spelled ChezDante. You can find it on Instagram. You can find it on YouTube. And you can listen to it on Spotify as well, because it is a podcast. So there are a bunch of episodes on there. Go check them out. If you'd like to support the platform, there's also a Patreon. But yeah, Chez Danté.
I feel like we're already having questions. We'll have to get to
we'll go
your
back
nationality.
And forth.
All that stuff.
We'll go back and forth.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that we were gonna hop right into is how to get yourself heard.
Ooh, this is a very good topic.
This is a very big topic. I'm just gonna like switch this
go for it
over here, just so we get a little bit rid of. If you just stay right there,
stay where I'm at.
The light is like perfect. Okay.
All right, awesome. Yes. So getting yourself heard. Now, as a musician, you know, making music, this is one of the most
I feel like it's really
things.
vague. I'll just say right now.
No, but I think it's super important. Like, if you're a musician, you need to be heard, right?
Yes.
Like, if you make music but nobody hears it, did you really make music?
Did you really make music?
Right? So,
did you?
You know, let's talk about it. How do you get heard? How do you get your music out there in front of ears and eyes?
I think the first thing you have to do is just make the music.
Okay.
Make the music first.
Okay.
And then actually strategize a plan. Strategize a plan to get yourself heard.
Okay.
In front of people. And so, like, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. I like to think of it like that, right? So if you have no strategy on how you're going to be heard, then you're not really going to be heard in the best way possible. You can have great, amazing, awesome music, but if nobody's hearing that, then it's just as kind of useless as bad music that's being heard.
Yeah, or not heard.
Or not heard, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's not really that much difference.
Yeah.
So you have to strategize a way to get yourself heard. And that also means marketing, investing, like actually putting your money towards your mouth, like where your mouth is.
Yeah.
You have to market yourself.
Yep.
And that's how you get heard. The posting videos and all that stuff is really good exposure. But you need to also know that like there has to be like an investment of real money to get yourself heard. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
As people think like, oh, I have to pay. I'm like, you got to pay for your shoes.
It's so true.
You got to pay for your pants.
People would much rather, spend money on shoes than promoting their business, which would then bring them more shoes. You know what I mean?
Promote your business and you'll get more shoes. Like, it's really that simple.
But people, right? Once again, people don't think of it in that way. Like you said, you do have to, invest some sort of monetary value into it. Yes. And it doesn't have to be thousands of dollars and we got to go to an agency and
we have to have a, record label and all that thing.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that, but you do have to actually invest into getting yourself out there, especially if you want to be heard. If you don't want to be heard, then, don't invest and just...
Yes.
Stay silent.
Stay silent, all right? Don't bother with the music.
Yeah.
So, yes, I would say, number 1, strategize a plan. Number 2, invest. And 3, it's kind of out of your control, but you, like, make the plan to hope for the best, right? So, like, set the bar high.
Yes.
Meet yourself somewhere in the middle, right? So, if you're like, I want 10,000 people to hear me, right?
Yeah.
That's what I want. I might get 3,000 people, right?
Yep.
That's still great, right? You set the bar high and you still meet yourself somewhere around that, right? So, and you have to think big for yourself.
Yeah.
So, set the bar high for yourself, strategize a plan and invest.
Yeah.
Those are like, the good ways.
Yeah.
What would you say?
For me, now, my perspective is a little bit different. While I am, making a podcast, but in terms of like, getting heard, I think, one of the things about getting heard is getting in front of the right people, right? Because if you get in front of the right people and they hear your music or hear what it is they're doing, they might be willing to like share it with other people and, they can create that sort of chain reaction of like, this person hears it, passes it to this person and this person.
Yeah.
But, finding the people, like getting in front of the right people, whether it be, people in your circle or people just outside your circle. Like you'd be surprised on who out there is just outside your current circle that can like take you to that next level. Like right outside your comfort zone.
So right on the other side of comfort.
Right on the other side, there are people there that they want to help you. They want to get your music out there. You can connect with people on social media. That's another way to get heard, right?
Make friends.
Make friends online. Make friends that are sharing work, because there are some people online that, they just post their own stuff, but then there are other people that are consistently sharing other people's work, right? And, driving the conversation that way. So you do kind of want to, make those connections. And, I think what you said is like really good. Plan, invest your money. And what was the third one?
Set the bar high.
Set the bar high. Set the bar up, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Like big up yourself.
No, I think that's good.
I was setting the bar low. And then I was setting the bar low for myself.
Really?
And then what happened was I surpassed those low bars. Like I surpassed those low goals where I was like, dang, I'm really thinking small for myself.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, let's set the bar like even higher. Past those comforting thoughts. Where you're like, oh, could I really pull these numbers? Could this really be something possible? Yeah. And we're like kind of believing that you could go there.
So let me ask you this. You said you were setting small goals for yourself, right? And then you were surpassing them like bit by bit, but then you decided to switch to setting bigger goals. What made you decide to switch that?
When I hit my small goals.
When you just hit the small goals?
Like when I hit the small goals, like naturally or not effortlessly, but like, I was like, okay.
Yes.
That I think because when I started to look at the numbers, let's take Spotify, for example. Okay. I had a figure in mind.
Yes.
And like when I first started it, I was like, okay, I'm just looking at these as just like little pixels on the screen. Mm-hmm. These are just numbers and they don't really matter. They're going to go up.
Yes.
So in my head, every day I was like, yeah, the numbers are going up. This little 200 mark doesn't really matter because I'm thinking 2,000 at that point, right?
Yes.
And then the 2,000 happened, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm not really focused on that. I'm thinking like bigger. I'm thinking like 5,000, right? And then I just kept seeing that.
Yeah.
And so I guess it just happened because I was just perceiving it as I'm already there at my goal, and what I see in front of me is just like. Yeah, I'm like, okay, well, like it is what it is. Like, it's whatever, right? I wasn't like so fixated on it.
Now, let me ask you another question. Do you think that setting a goal that maybe is too high, not every goal is like too high, but sometimes you could set a goal that may be outside of your current capabilities. Mm-hmm. And if you set the goal too high, you might end up discouraging yourself.
Or disappointed.
Or disappointing yourself. Do you ever feel like you've encountered that where you set the bar too high and you maybe have to like reel it back a little bit?
Like, let's reel it back. Definitely.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You should be thinking as big as possible, but you also want to think realistic where you are right now in your life and the skill sets that you have right now, right? If I'm trying to play, let's think about it like 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I was trying to play arabesque by Clásica, and somebody asked me, does this piece intimidate you? 4 years ago it did. Now when I look at it, I'm like, nah, right?
Interesting.
But 4 years ago, I tried to do that piece, knowing that I was nowhere near the level of proficiency. So, we have to be realistic with ourselves. If I tried the piece now, I could, let's be real, like, I could definitely do it.
Yes.
I'm planning on doing it.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Like, yeah, I'm planning on doing it, but like, I'm not going to give myself like a Tchaikovsky piece when I'm not there yet.
Is that like a very hard?
Yeah.
Okay, I just heard is he Russian? Tchaikovsky? Is he Polish?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think he's Russian. I'm gonna get dragged for this, honestly. Some historical musician is gonna drag me for this.
It's okay.
But either way, like, yes, you have to set the bar for yourself, but also like just recognize like where you're at right now, and then just be realistic.
Yeah. What are some tips you would have to set goals that are in that range? Like, do you have a metric that you're using, or do you kind of just feel it out as you're going?
I just think of like where I'm at right now. I'm like, and it's kind of an easy answer. It's like, can I do this?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, probably. Like, will I do it? Okay, yeah, probably. And then, I don't know, take the steps towards like doing it. Yeah. There's no real like list or metric that
Fair
I
enough.
go off of.
Yeah.
It's just about really recognizing your strengths and where you're at right now. And that's really it.
Nice.
Yeah.
What else do we have? No, let's keep going.
But so I think does that like conclude how to get yourself heard?
Well, I think that's a good point. Like we're talking about it. You set your goals and you
set your goals.
Oh, someone asking a question?
We're just like, people are just like hopping in and out of the chats.
Okay. Yeah, no, but I think it does put a nice little bow on it to like, if you want to get yourself heard, like plan to get yourself heard and figure out what are some things that I can do today or in the next week or in the next month to get myself heard. And
set attainable goals.
Yes, exactly. Set attainable goals.
Right.
Set attainable goals, invest money, and believe in yourself. What was the third one? Is attainable goals? Well,
set the bar high for yourself. Invest.
Yeah.
Network.
Yeah.
Make friends.
Yeah. Making friends is also super important because, they talk about this in Start With Why, but the early adopters are the ones that help take you to the next level, right? Because if there's no early adopters, there's no one that actually helps bring your music to the masses, right? Because there's no one listening. So there has to be, those early adopters that like, they like your stuff from early on, and they're the ones that share, and they're the
diehards.
They're the diehards, like, yeah. I was gonna say something, but it's irrelevant, so I'm not gonna say it.
Okay.
All right, we'll go to the next one.